Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, the financial education brand that hopes to make everyone a little bit more financially literate. And today we are covering November 8th to 15 in cannabis. So, if you enjoy this video at any point, please make sure you leave a thumbs up on my channel. It really helps me out, and I do appreciate it. And as well, if you do find some value in this video or any other videos you've watched, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any new videos of this week in cannabis or any weekly ETF breakdowns or videos that I cover. And last but not least, if you've not signed up for a self-directed tax-free savings account and you are Canadian, there's a link below to the top 2 discount brokers in Canada, which are Quest Trade and Wealth Simple Trade. That way you can use that link to sign up for an account with them, get a little bit of free money for doing so, and you can always reach out to me and I'll help you navigate the platform so that you can get started on the right foot. And so without further ado, let's jump into what's happened this week, because a lot has happened, especially good news about at least things resuming that should have happened, and some MSOs releasing earnings which are very positive. So, the House of Representatives will vote on cannabis legalization in December. So there was originally a vote for the MORE Act in September, but unfortunately Mitch McConnell, the D-bag Senate Majority Leader, who could potentially take hold of the Senate again if the Dems don't win the majority in that extra vote in January, that's going to be an obstacle. But nonetheless, it's great to see that this vote that was scheduled for September is going to be coming in December. So this is led by the House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer. Now, there's no specific date yet, but they're saying December 1st to 4th or December 7th to 10th. But basically, the bill was scrapped before. Now it's resumed, which is great. So I guess Hoyer sent this letter out on Monday for December, and they will vote on the MORE Act to decriminalize cannabis and expunge convictions for nonviolent cannabis offenses. That prevented Americans from getting jobs and just trying to give money back to the communities affected the most. Now, the unfortunate thing is, I mean, obviously, we know in the election, drugs won. People voted unanimously to legalize cannabis, which is a great sign. Now, of course, if it goes through the House, it still has to go through the Senate. And as long as that's controlled by Mitch, it's going to be extremely difficult. But this is just good to see because it's more exposure for cannabis. It's at least being talked about, and now we have the momentum of 5 more states legalizing adult use and medicinal as well. So it just, excuse me, it just helps. It's momentum being built up, which is great. Now, another good news is that Mexican senators will vote on a revised cannabis legalization bill this week. Now, they are circulating a revised draft bill to legalize cannabis nationwide, and several committees are set to hold a joint hearing on the legislation on Friday, and the plan is to move the bill to the Senate floor for next Tuesday. Now, I'm not going to get in too much to this just because Mexico was supposed to legalize last year, and it didn't happen. So this is just, again, it's great to see that now they're taking action again and they're trying, but I'm not going to go into the details yet until something actually comes out of that because got my hopes up last year. But again, it's good awareness. People are talking about it because again, it's so much more than getting stoned. It's jobs, it's tax revenue, it's all this stuff. Now, from Israel, the government committee said set to recommend full cannabis legalization, and they recommend this releasing days after a health ministry changed their tack back to recreational use. Now, I mean, the main thing, of course, they're always going to use probably the least reputable pictures of people consuming cannabis because, you know, I consume cannabis as a tool to help me sleep and get creative. And, you know, I don't look like these people, but of course they want to use, you know, outsider-looking people or people that aren't contributing to society as much as the cannabis smokers. And that's one thing I just hate about the media, but that's what they're always going to do. And you just have to look past that because anyone can, you know, use cannabis with intention and potentially see better results. And again, not saying anyone should do it if they don't want to. That's just my take on how the media portrays this kind of stuff. Nonetheless, they mentioned that they will, in this article, they mentioned that they will hire a committee to look into it. And this article came out on November 9th. So then if you look on November 12th, at this article, it was pretty quick. Israel announces plan to legalize recreational cannabis within 9 months, which is great to see because it will, again, this is a very progressive country backed by the United States, of course, but this is, again, it. While balancing liberalism and responsibility, I mean, liberalism is why you want to legalize in the first place because if something's illegal, it creates a black market, and it takes away personal freedoms, people's right to choose, and especially if cannabis helps them, why should they not have access to it? So the good thing about this bill, for people ages 21 and up, they'll be allowed to purchase from specialized stores, required to show ID, of course. It will ban smoking in public places. And then I believe to ensure reasonable prices to encourage them away from the black market. And this is a big factor on why it's so important. And if you don't, it's good to know the difference between legalization over decriminalization, because legalization eliminates the black market. Decriminalization does not. So it's very important to consider full-on legalization and just recreating better systems as opposed to leaving the black market out there to capitalize on money and crime and death, because that's what causes crime and unnecessary unnecessary issues on top of that. Nonetheless, Aphria, I just want to add this in there because Aphria joins Israeli medical cannabis rush with the new supply deal. Now again, this is an old article, so this is from August 5th, but this new news I think is very good because you will consider, okay, Israel, are we growing cannabis right now ourselves? Maybe not. Okay, are we partnered with any companies outside of our country that are growing cannabis? Yes, we are. And so on Tuesday, this again is older, but Aphria entered an agreement to provide Candoc, a subsidiary of Intercure Ltd, with dried bulk flower for up to 7 years. And the first 2 years of the deal is 300,000 kilograms, which again is not a ton, but this is a way that Aphria is offloading some of the cannabis that they can't sell in Canada because the stores, not enough stores have opened yet, or things are still catching up with the balance there. But again, this initiative could increase or further bring this partnership into more potential avenues. So I just think that's fantastic. And even Tejas is taking action. Texas lawmakers begin pre-filing bills to decriminalize cannabis in the state. So this is huge. Cannabis is now legal in some form in 38 states, up from 33 before the election, which is amazing. And Texas is not one of them yet. But 9 new bills were introduced this week, and one of them from Senator-elect Roland Gutierrez would allow for both medical and recreational use if passed. So again, it has nothing to do with getting stoned. It's really just the fact that all these other factors like jobs and tax revenue. Texas will be facing tremendous budgetary challenges next session. So this bill would create 30,000 new jobs for the state, produce $3.2 billion in new revenue without raising taxes on everyday Texans. Like, why? It just blows my mind that people don't get this yet. And I'm not trying to down anyone that doesn't know, but it's just like when you do your own research and you look, this is the stuff you find. So this is so important. And the good thing is that these new lawmakers, they can start filing these in 2021. So it's totally possible that Texas could legalize and go into effect. And Texas, again, a huge state, huge population. That's where you want it. And I just want to add this because it's fascinating. Again, bill to decriminalize cannabis in New Jersey passes in committee. So a bill to decriminalize is already sweep through, so you're not going to get in trouble or you're not going to risk going to jail for smoking cannabis. And this bill was actually amended to include magic mushrooms, psilocybin. So now you might not be aware, but Johns Hopkins University studies have been doing some research with psilocybin for like addiction therapy and things like this, and they've gotten some pretty remarkable results. About 60, or I don't know the figure exactly, but from 60 to 70% of people that use psilocybin to quit addictions have found it effective, especially for cigarettes. And the main thing I just want to share with you guys is, even myself, I used to smoke cigarettes, and it was in the fall of 2019 where I had a trusted friend explain to me the different factors, and I decided to take a large dose of psilocybin mushrooms myself. Now, I'm not saying anyone should do this, but with that friend I did, with the intent of, wanting to quit cigarettes, among other things, trying to sort out things in my life that I wasn't too pleased with. But that dose of psilocybin with intent, it helped me quit cigarettes. So, there's not a lot of science behind this, and I mean, that's why we need more of it, but we certainly do not need people just claiming that they know how these substances work without ever even using them. That's the most dangerous possible thing in society. So as an example, I want to point out how this guy, Kevin Sabet, a former drug policy advisor, 3 U.S. presidential administrations, this guy runs, I forget the agency name, I should totally have it here, but basically they're trying to prevent the next big tobacco. And their argument is saying that we cannot legalize cannabis nationwide because they're going to turn into a big corporation like the others. They're kind of reverse engineering the old argument as to why, tobacco would be good for you and why you need to grow this, why alcohol would be good. But look at this douchebaggery. It's a gradual step to the legalization of all drugs. We've seen mushrooms get passed in Oregon. What's next? Heroin and methamphetamine? No! It's not next. No one turns to heroin or methamphetamine because they need help. People want to turn to alternatives because 50,000 people a year dying from opioids, which I'm going to, and again, connecting the dots, this guy's probably a spokesperson for Big Pharma as well to have this view. And again, this is just my view, this is speculation. I don't have facts on this guy, but it's just these people in government that have judgments or believe they know how any of these things work without ever having trying or knowing this. It's nuts. And it's just great that we're getting this exposure because, again, we don't know much about these. I'm not saying anyone should go do them, but, with intent and with the right guidance, even training for doctors, we're going to see a massive paradigm shift towards these substances because they're going to make people healthy again. I've quit alcohol as of this year, and, I do consume cannabis frequently, and not frequently, but just like at least once a day, usually to help me go to sleep. And all I can say is I feel healthier, and it has improved my life tremendously in the last year since, taking psilocybin with intent to quit cigarettes and then quitting alcohol just because I don't feel like I need it anymore. I feel the best I've ever felt, and I just feel if anyone has been looking for some sort of help out there, it's good to share this information and not demonize it because there's nothing wrong for wanting to get help to, feel better so you can be better for those around you. Nonetheless, get back into it. Harvest Health and Recreation reports third quarter fiscal 2020 results. Harvest went up 61.6 million, up 86% from the third quarter of 2019 and 11% sequentially. So let's just dive down into the numbers. They are sitting on 862,000 total or 862 million in total assets. And 477 million in total liabilities. Now the thing is, they do have quite a bit of debt here that they have to pay, 260,000 or 260 million. Sorry, again, these numbers are in hundreds of thousands. So they do have they are a little bit debt heavy. But what's good to see with Harvest Recreational, and Harvest is one of the 5 companies that I covered in my Reality Check Cannabis in 2020 series. So I would recommend if you want to learn about the top 5 U.S. multi-state operators I'm following, you can go check that video out. But as we can see from last quarter, they have increased their revenue. So revenue brought in was 61 million. Cost of goods sold was 32. So the gross profit before all other costs was $28 million, which is great. Now, of course, then you have to subtract all the other costs, administrative, sales and marketing, things like this. And once we get to the bottom, we can see that they only, net loss was 2.1 million. But when you look at the improvement, which is, much lower of last year than 39 million, they are losing significantly less money than before. And again, this is down from 40 million down to 84. So although they're not profitable yet, the main thing that we want to see, and which is great that Harvest is doing, is they are increasing revenues while decreasing the costs in order to create that. So they should soon very well be profitable, which is great. Now, Green Thumb, though, boom! I'm very excited to see, I think, True Leaf and Cure Leaf report earnings this week. Or no, it might be Cure Leaf and Cresco. But Green Thumb was the first of the big MSOs to report revenue of 157 million. Up from 119 million in the summer, which is huge, and they are profitable, 4 cents a share. So they increased 50%, their EBITDA increased their profitability to 53 million. They increased 31.3% from, again, 3 months ago, which they brought in 119 million, and up 131% year over year. So these numbers are massive. Net income of positive $9.6 million and 4 cents a share. So if they were paying out a dividend, they might only pay 1 cent a share, but they're profitable and they can now do that. So this was huge on Green Thumb, good for them. And they are obviously, so what they are, just to highlight, they're a family of consumer brands produced, distributed, and available in retail locations in 11 states. So again, as an MSO, in order to distribute or sell in the state, you have to have some sort of a small operation to cultivate and or harvest, cultivate, and distribute in there. But the great thing is that their brands sales have grown 32.6% quarter over quarter. So they're establishing themselves as one of the big dominant players there. And third quarter revenue increased sales from 48 retail stores across 10 states. So as you know, this is normalized and laws change, they are just going to expand, which is amazing. So Green Thumb released earnings last week. Next week, I will be covering the remaining MSOs. And this is just, if you watched my video earlier this week on Aurora and Canopy, I mentioned that Aurora is likely going to have to, because they have no cash left, they will have to raise more money. And this is exactly what they did on November 10th. Aurora Cannabis announces proposed public offering. So what does this mean? Basically, I think Aurora has about 115 million shares outstanding. Now they have no money, so they need to raise more money. So they're offering people out there, investors, usually big institutions or people with money, $7.50 a share. They're offering people to invest $125 million in order to get valuation for this company at $7.50 US a share. Basically what this does, though, is this just dilutes share ownership. So I apologize, I haven't done the math beforehand, but I imagine if you divide 125 million by 750, you would figure out how many extra shares they're adding. But fundamentally, when you dilute share ownership, for your investors in the market or any investors in the company, you lose your percentage of ownership. It sucks. It's not ideal, but Aurora has done this, and it's not the first time Aurora has done this. This is earlier April 2020. Aurora Cannabis used to have 1.3 billion shares outstanding, and in April they did a 1-for-12 reverse stock split, which essentially made their share price worth way more, but because they had to reduce the total amount of outstanding shares they already had. So by going from 1.3 billion to 109 million, the past share prices, if you look at the chart, have risen up to like $150 worth of value, which at no point ever existed. But it's just funny that now that Aurora have released their earnings and they've not been great, now they have to dilute more and raise more money, unfortunately, just because that's what terribly managed companies do, and you do not want to be a shareholder of these terribly managed companies, because then it just reduces your ownership and it takes you a much longer time to earn a return on your investment. So sucks. It just sucks, unfortunately, but this is part of the learning experience. Going through this, thankfully I profited off of Aurora a few times. Luckily, that was some of my best trades, or best short-term investments, but nonetheless, this is what you learn with practice and over time. And lastly, I just wanted to bring up this article because, again, there's just so much more to view cannabis as an ingredient, not the product necessarily. By adding, by researching the plant more and figuring out the compounds in it that actually, have therapeutic benefits for people, we can look at it less of like the plant to smoke and consume, and we can figure out ways to add it into different products to improve our life, whether it's with THC, whether it's with CBD, to reduce anxiety, to stop pain, to stop inflammation, different things like that. So I just brought this article up because this is a new coined name, Cannabis 3.0. The data is almost unbelievable, and this would explain why there was such a boom in Canada in 2018 when money was extremely cheap. There was a bubble just a year after the Bitcoin bubble, but this is an interesting point here. Following the dot-com boom and bust, technology stocks have grown steadily, and this is what will happen with cannabis. But in fact, what is more exciting with cannabis is that the market already exists, right? There's an illegal market, but once we make it legal, it's going to be massive. Where before this, there was no illegal tech market before the tech boom and bust, right? This took a lot of time. This is why we can see cannabis growing, once we just make the switch, growing sequentially for many years to come, like a decade. So obviously cannabis needs greater institutional investment, and that will come as the Safe Banking Act passes and as these big institutions are allowed to work with these companies, but it's going to come. And the Safe Banking Act could literally pass in a stimulus bill in the next few months. Obviously I'm optimistic. It might not, but that would be great. And the biggest boost to the institutional legislation, the elections, would be the great shift in direction. And again, yes, I do see this as a generational wealth opportunity. That's why I'm investing it. That's why I'm spreading this awareness and trying to help people realize, this is the future. It's coming. But nonetheless, the end of cannabis prohibition across multiple geographies will open up the industry to research and development, financial activities like banking and insurance, all these great things I have mentioned. And many companies are building cannabis products as the be-all and end-all. However, cannabis and cannabinoids, the terpenes, these can be ingredients added to other things to, again, improve our quality of life. So that was it for this week in cannabis, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments as well. But if you did enjoy this video, please make sure that you leave a like or subscribe so that you don't miss any more going forward. So Wednesday, I will be out with likely a video on the earnings. Yes, because I believe the Curaleaf and Cresco or Trulieve, whichever ones, release on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, I will be dropping a video on those earnings, and then I'll be back for next week in cannabis. So hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any new ones, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.